der Krieg begann.
Was geschehen? Jemand hat abgestürzt und die Bombe. Wir bekommen Signal. Was? Hauptbildschirm einschalten. Es ist du.
Wie geht es Ihnen, meine Herren? Ihre gesamte Stützpunkt gehört zu uns. Ihr seid auf dem Weg zu Zerstörung.
Was du sagst?
Ihr habt keine Chance zu überleben. Macht ihre Zeit.
Was du tust. Heb ab, jeder Sieg, du weißt, was du tust.
Ihre gesamte Stützpunkt gehört zu uns, gehört zu uns, gehört zu uns, gehört zu uns.
Bewegung Sieg, Bewegung Sieg, Bewegung Sieg.
Stick a fork in, open wide. Everyone is Max inside, full of colorful guts and habits. Cryptic world of cryptic rabbits. Underutilized impulse control. Rabbit rampant junk food in a big black hole. Loopy cravings and rigmarole. Feel his giant feet right in your soul. Mania, sloth, irreverence, excess, gluttony, revelry, violence, and selfishness. Flags of pure, unfettered, rashly unfurled. It's a Max, 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 Max world.
Stick a spork in deep inside.
Sweet lag, everyone is maxified by hypnosis or by nature. What is the difference? Just nomenclature. Shake your friend's adorable paws. Be careful of his powerful biting jaws. We're a mix of cop and felon, wearing heads like ripened watermelons. Mania, sloth, irreverence, excess, gluttony, revelry, violence, and selfishness. Flags of your unfettered, brashly unfurled. It's a Max, 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 Max world. Ba-da-doo-dee-da-doo-dee-da-da-ba-doo-dee. unreserved, unquestionable excess. The larkiness, sharkiness, snarkiness, and selfishness. Flags of pure unfettered, it brashly unfurled. It's a max, 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 max world. It's a max, max world. It's a max, 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 max world.
Alright, Dwelling of Duels. This is a very special event. I'm your host, Evil Sonic. We are here for a very special album release party with Angry Polar Bear's new album, Out of Hibernation. This is the third album release on the DoD Twitch stream in the past, month. It's pretty damn exciting. I'm going to do this quick plug, and then I'm going to turn it over to that all points bulletin that is Angry Polar Bear. Dwelling of Duels is a monthly video. Oh, I forgot about cameras. Hang on, everyone. I know how to stream. Co-host cam and host cam. Okay, there we go. We are on camera. We are live. You can hear me. Someone's waving. Dwelling of Duels is a monthly video game, music, cover competition with a really excellent community of supportive artists who love video games and music and video game music. And one of those really excellent artists, great friend, great collaborator, great guy, Angry Polar Bear. APB, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing alright. How about you?
I'm better now.
Uh-huh.
So, tell us, what are we doing here?
This is an album. It's going to come out tomorrow of a bunch of entries that I did for DoD over the last 4 years. And I kind of had the idea for a while, just once I started accumulating more entries and thinking, hey, you know what, I'd like to get these out there in some other form, because when you send people links to the DoD website, they get scared of them because of how they appear. And I wasn't putting them up on YouTube or anything yet either. And then I also had the thought that maybe I can use this opportunity to improve on some of them, take some of the feedback into consideration that I got during reviews, and maybe even add some extra parts or bring in some live musicians for parts that weren't previously live. So that's really the whole genesis idea. It's really focused on my synthier stuff. There's no vocals on there except for, well, one little exception. But I know I've kind of oscillated between doing both things in DoD, but this is definitely the keyboard side of me.
I know you pretty well as a keyboardist. I'm trying to remember the first time the name Angry Polar Bear came across my screen and made me just sit up and say whoa. I think might have been Thief, which we just heard in the pre-show. And so I primarily know you as a keyboardist. I can't say that because I obviously know, we've done so many vocal things. I first knew you as a keyboardist, and then I've primarily known you as a keyboardist, and I've primarily known you as a vocalist because you are really exceptional at both those things. But I think I knew you for the keys before I knew you for the chords in your throat. So we're gonna hear some music tonight. APB is gonna pop in throughout the party to drop some knowledge about the tracks, some background, some fun facts, some information. So I'm gonna keep my talking here short, and we're gonna have music. We're gonna have APB. At the end of this, we're gonna chit and chat, and we're going to keep it right here because this is the title of the album is behind the now playing, and that's where I'm looking. This is Out of Hibernation, he said, remembering the name of the title he's been looking at for the past week and should have known immediately. So keep it right here, because when you see a polar bear, you should jam out. Okay, we are back live. APB, I know you had some thoughts that you wanted to share. Do you want me to tee it up, or do you want me to just kick it your way?
Hang on a second, the music started playing for the second track, but I realized that was local, and I got a little ahead of myself with the visuals. Technical difficulties, streaming is fun. So I wanted to put this track first on the album because I think it's the strongest one. It's an arrangement I'm pretty proud of. It started a long time ago when I realized that there were a couple of notes in common between the Space Harrier theme and the DuckTales Moon theme, and I also had in my head the idea of, wouldn't it be funny if for a DoD track you started and led people into believing that it was going to be one thing, and then it was a bait and switch, and actually, here you go, it's the moon. So I had that idea a long time ago. So they started putting the arrangement together. So this really is, it's probably one of the only times that I've had like a banked arrangement that I'd already worked on a lot before the actual DoD month. But that being said, all of the work of actually making it real happened during that month, which was for Free Month in December 2022, and I knew I was going to be at MAG in person, and I wanted people in the room to experience it, and so on. Over time, like when I was arranging it, I'd added in, it needed a third place to go, so I added in the Lonely Rolling Star track as well, because I love that song so much, and the three of them just really meshed together really well as sort of like uplifting, happy, space-related themes. When doing it for DoD, so I had a bunch of the keyboard parts figured out and arranged. I knew I wanted Ian to play guitar. You'll find that he plays guitar on a lot of tracks on this album, which I'm very, very grateful for. And then I think a while beforehand, I had sent Tuck kind of the demo of the track, and it was like, I really want to make this happen, and he really encouraged me to actually do it and to play on it as well. So for DoD, it was the three of us. One thing that was pretty funny is, as is often the case during December when there's travel for holidays and everything like that, I was very short on time, as well as trying to do a few other things for a few other people for DoD. So I think very close to the end, I realized that I was going to have to mix it on the plane to Washington for MagFest. So Tuck actually graciously offered to step in at the last minute and mix it for me. So that was really good, and he added in a bunch of things that just really like enhanced it and brought it to life a lot. So he did a whole bunch of work enhancing the MIDI drums, sequence drums. He added the synth bass part to it, added the choir patch in the Katamari part, and some extra awesome like synth fills and stuff. So I was really happy with it. The challenge was that this was the listening party that was like started at midnight or whatever it was and was 5 hours long, and this is it was listed as Space Harrier, so it starts with S. So by the time that we got to it, we'd already heard 15 One-Winged Angels and a bunch of other things, and we were all really tired and sad and just didn't want to be there. I did appreciate that Austin, who I'd cleared with beforehand, the fact that it was a bit of a bait and switch. I think he put in the chat like you must declare all tunes in your medley like upon arrival, because it was it leads you one way and takes you another way. But I think people enjoyed it. There are a couple other tunes in there that were referenced. I don't know if you caught the two Easter eggs in there. There's Corneria and then Rainbow Road as well. They're pretty obvious ones. I will say a lot of the tracks on this album have little Easter eggs in there, and what I might do for the other tracks is just like mention how many there are or that they exist, and then see if people know them or can find them and put them in the chat. But that's just something I really enjoy doing as a musician, and I know a lot of us love doing it, whether it's the lick or the 3-4-5-1-8 or whatever. It ended up coming, I mean, for Free Month, for a MAG month, there were 45 entries. It was a lot of music. It ended up coming 7th, which I was really, really happy with, and I was so pleased with that. And I think it's one of my, like, the highest scores they've had as well in DoD. So that felt really good and kind of validating for the arrangement. And then the other thing that was really important is when I knew I wanted to do it on the album, realized that it would be made a whole lot better with real live drums. So Eric Beckman, Dr. Eric Beckman of Kirby's Dream Band, added recorded live drums for it, which is, it's a challenge in a medley as well because it bounces around a bunch, and I've no idea how you drum in 15/8, but he did, for the which it doesn't start that way, but I put it in at the end because I really enjoy the sort of the energy of that section with the slightly odd meter to it. But yeah, really enjoy that tune. I'm really glad people like it.
It's a great song. That was a great month. That's the month I met you, and that was so that was a treat. So I have that association with it. We got a bunch more music. So before we start up with track 2, any other thoughts before we dive in, or just dive in?
I guess I'll just intro these 2 tracks, and then I'll talk more about them afterwards. But yeah, one of them is from a shareware DOS game called Fuzzy's World of Miniature Space Golf, and it's goofy and hilarious, and I love it. And I posted a bunch about it on Blue Sky the other day. And then the next one is Virtual Runes, which is probably one of the more different ones from its D&D version because it's got a whole other instrument and part in there. So lots to listen to. There are 2 Easter eggs to find in the Fuzzies track, and there is 1 Easter egg, also new since DoD, in the Virtual Runes track. So see if you can find it.
Well, I gotta say, APB, you can interest me in an egg in these trying times. So keep it right here. This is Angry Polar Bears out of hibernation. And let me remember how to change the audio. Keep it right here. here we are. We are back. Oh, helps when we've got APB's Jor-El head there. Okay. Now we're both up. We're both there. So this is Angry Polar Bear's Out of Hibernation listening party. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what I just heard two great tracks that I was very familiar with, that I've heard a million times before, but they sounded quite different, and I gotta say that last one had I've since September 2022's Game Boy month, when I first heard Virtual Runes, I was like, this track has super strong Stranger Things vibes. On this listen, I was getting like that a Talking Heads Stop Making Sense vibe. I don't know where it was coming. It was something in the synth, but I'm gonna kick it to you because I know you got some things.
Yeah. I can start with that one actually. The Virtual Runes. So yeah, this was an entry for Game Boy month, which was September 2022. This is one of the ones where I actually have never played this game. I just went hunting for good music for the month, and I know that's what some of us do with sometimes there's a theme that triggers an idea that you've had in your head for a while, or just makes you think of something you'd forgotten about, and sometimes you just want to go find some hidden gem. And that's the cool thing about the VGM catalog, is that there's so much good stuff out there that doesn't get heard enough, and you can find pretty amazing stuff if you go digging a bit, thanks to people archiving stuff or putting it up on YouTube or Zofar and places like that. So yeah, I found this track. I really liked just the vibe of it, and it's a typical sort of Game Boy thing where it's using the 4 channels, but using them really effectively. It's got all these interweaving parts so that it sounds like you've got more channels than you actually have, because each channel is playing multiple roles and filling in the gaps. So one of the neat things about arranging it is, I have that limitation. I can do what I want with it. So I was able to try and fill in some of those gaps that were there for a technical reason in the first place, but able to do something different musically afterwards. This is one that is really different from the DVD version, because when it played, I remember Joe saying that he loved the track, and he offered me suggestions on the intro needs to be shorter, and this sounds it sounds really good, liking the vibe, liking the sound of it. And then when I knew I wanted to do the album and I knew I wanted to put on there, Joe sent me basically a version of it with sax played over the top, and I'm like, yes, this needs to happen.
Of course he did.
Yeah, it's so good. It works so well, just interweaving with the parts that were already there. It's me on most of the keyboards, and then the sort of dueling solos at the end. I guess it's a 3-way duel now, but at the end there's a few little solos that are me, and in between some solos that are Tuck. And then Joe added the sax as well. And so what we ended up doing was one of the sections that's just more of a groove. Joe solos over the top of that, and then to add a little bit more, or to extend the tune a little bit, I added a new section that's just a little bit more sort of a chill breakdown, again with some great arrangement suggestions and enhancements from Joe about let's pare down the drums a little bit, kind of make a little bit of a breakdown there, and I think it works really, really well. So there was one little Easter egg in there. It was a very subtle background quote to Sirius by the Alan Parsons Project, just because I love that that sort of synthy vibe as well, or something that's just kind of setting the tone. Really, really, really enjoy the new version of that one. The other one, Fuzzy. So this was actually, this was really when this is early pandemic. So this was May 2020, and I had done prior to 2020, I'd done a couple of, or 2 or 3 DoD entries for various things, including one with for my old band, and then it was really April 2020 when I entered something in the free month there. I did a track which is not on the album, from Near, And then when the next theme was announced as golf versus fishing, somehow like Fuzzy's World of Miniature Space Golf, buried in my memory somewhere, rose up to the top, and I was like, I remember this, because I was trying to think like, had I actually played any games that were, fully focused on either golf or fishing, and not very many. Maybe once or twice playing like Mario Golf or something like that. And fishing often is like a mini game, but not as something the game itself is revolves around. But Fuzzy kind of like came back to memory, and I remembered it having really good music. So I went and dug it up, and of course there it is. Here's the whole soundtrack on YouTube, and I actually went down a pretty crazy rabbit hole with it, realizing that because I wanted to look for the best thing with the older retro tunes is that maybe there's somebody you can actually get like access to the original music files. You can break it down, make arrangement a whole lot easier by separating channels and things like that. Turns out it's in this proprietary format that basically made it easier to access like the synth features of the ad-lib sound cards back in the 90s. It was a guy in Germany, I believe, who had made this system called Loudness, and it's used in a bunch of different games, including Tyrion. And I ended up messaging Alexander Brandon about it, because I was like, hey, do you remember anything about this file? And he was like, oh yeah, I used to write things in the like ad-lib software and then send them off to this guy in Germany. You would send them back to in the right format for this thing. But I think it really lent itself to like little loops, whether that's like a synth loop or a drum loop or something like that. So a lot of the tracks that are on the soundtrack of that game, they have kind of layers that come in and out, and the tunes are kind of constructed from those. But this one's super catchy. I really just wanted more people to hear it. It wasn't like having some grand idea to arrange the tune. It's just no, I just want people to know about this game and listen to this. I almost picked one of the even goofier tunes on the album, but and then I knew I wasn't going to be able to do it all on my own, and this was actually the first time that I collabed with Ian Cowell, because we've been chatting a bunch, and I'd been listening to a bunch of stuff with his band Birthday, and we'd played together a show on the Runaway Forward tour with Kirby's Dream Band the previous year. So we'd had some back and forth, and I was like, oh yeah, I really want to do something with Ian. So I asked him to play, and like, I swear that guitar solo that he plays at the end of that track, that is one of my favorite Ian Cowell guitar solos. It's so good. I really hope that one day we can like do it live, because it just like, much like anything that I do with Ian, he gets the idea really quickly, he gets the vibe, and then sends me something that's basically perfect immediately, and I can just drop it in and it works, which was great for me being a complete production noob at that point. It's actually I'm a classical nerd pianist, trained that way. For all of my arranging up to that point was always done like in Sibelius, in sheet music, for real instruments with that in mind. And this was Fuzzy was the first time that I challenged myself to do the whole thing in Reaper instead of actually making sheet music. So using the piano roll, putting in the synths that way, and constructing it in a very different way than I'm used to thinking about it, which is why it kind of works really well on that loop. And then the two Easter eggs I did see in the chat that people correctly caught the ABBA Dancing Queen Easter egg in there, and then the other one is there's a mag clap in there, which will show up in a few of the tracks on this album as well. So if you don't know what the mag clap is, it's the one clap. There you go. That's a mag clap. So keep an ear out for that in a few of the other tracks.
All right, that was excellent. Thank you for that break. I'm loving these breakdowns. It's a little different than the other parties we've done in the past, but I don't think there's been a wrong way yet. So let's keep it coming. Next two tracks are Cuba Libre and Frozen Flames. I do remember Frozen Flames. That was August 2020, the month that like captured my heart back into DoD. Anything you want to say, like in the next 10 seconds before
I guess just names of the game. So Cuba Libre is the original track's called Pirate Island. It's from Dragon Slayer: The Legend of Heroes, specifically the TurboGrafx 16 version. And then Frozen Flames is the level's called Scorch and Torch, and it's from Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, which is the most recent game on the album.
All right. Well, this is Angry Polar Bears out of hibernation. Keep it right here. And let me remember how to do audio. That gets funnier every time, I know. All right. Jesus.
You okay there?
It's the vodka and sweet vermouth. It's not working. This is the Dwelling of Duels channel. I am Evil Sonic here with Angry Polar Bear's wonderful album release for Out of Hibernation. APB, what can you tell us about what we just heard? What we're going to hear next? What do you got for us?
Yeah, so there, I'll start with the first one. So Cuba Libre, which was from Dragon Slayer: The Legend of Heroes. This is another game that I did not play, but Dave, who's my boyfriend, he when I was at MagFest at the start of this year, he sent me a message saying, "You need to do this track with Tuck and Joe, and you'll win." And so I basically browbeat both of them into being on it while I was there at MagFest. But then as the month went on and the arrangement developed, I realized that it needed a team really for the what I was thinking. So yeah, it ended up being me on some of the keyboards, Tuck on some of the other keyboards, Joe on the sax, Ian on guitars, and then Kev Ragone on the drums, and Sam Schwartz on the bass. And it was just a whole lot of fun. And it was one of those things, kind of like, I wasn't quite sure if it was going to work until the pieces started falling into place, and then it felt like it really did. I for some reason, I think when I started listening to the track a lot, the brass hits just really made me think of Gloria Estefan and the conga, and I just could not get that mashup out of my head, and so it actually let me do something pretty fun, which is using the classic structure that I know Joe loves to use and teach to other people, which is you do the tune once and then you do it again with a bit of spice and extra flavor to it, and then you go nuts and then you come back to it again for the ending. And so this one really follows that, where it's just the first initial loop, which is pretty fun. It's got a good groove to it, and trading between the sax and the guitar and the keys for the melody, and then second time around with a bit of like soloing and extra stuff added to it, and then suddenly it's the conga. And like when I had like the temp percussion in there, and I think I just grabbed like a conga.mid or whatever from some old website to grab the the drums just to see if it might work, and then when Kev sent the real drums, it was just like, oh yeah, this is great. And I loved the way it sounded so much, and I know it's got all these great live instruments, and then it's got this fake ass sounding brass in there, but that's kind of the point. Like that, I think it fits really well. I'm a big fan of fake keyboard brass. And just like everything in there, like once it really locks in, there's a part I love where like Sam's got this great groove going on the bass, and then there's a little moment in Joe's solo where they just lock in together, and it sounds so good. And then when Ian sent me the guitar solo, then, and I was like, okay, I want to add some harmony to this with the synth, and I just feel like it fit together really well, and just makes people smile. There was also the original tune has an almost 3-4-5-1-8, so I just turned it into that because why not? So that's one of the Easter eggs in there. It shows up a couple times, and I think Joe does an almost the lick in the solo as well. I remember us talking about that when we were doing the track. I'm going to stop before I talk about the next one, because I realized that I have not, up to this point, I have been remiss, I have not mentioned the fact that all of the tracks on this album, not only are they redone with some new parts and new instruments and everything, but they have all been remixed and produced, mastered by the fantastic Eric Peabody, Mr. Viking Guitar, who has been such a big supporter of this project from the beginning, when I started to say like, maybe I should release some of my tracks myself, and then lots of conversations and good chats about like, should I try and do it myself with a bit more guidance, revisiting it, or should I just hire him to do it for me? And that's what I did. I hired him to do it for me, and Eric is so fantastic to work with. Just like really wants to help people to convey their vision or what they have for the tracks. Lots of fun back and forth. Like, I don't think Eric had heard a lot of these tracks before. There's a few times that I poked him and said, hey, I did this thing for DoD. But it's been such a pleasure to work with him, and especially this last kind of the home stretch, like getting all the final little edits and tweaks and things in, and packaging it all up and saying like, yep, we're done. So thank you. It's I could not have done this without his help. So the next track, which is the Frozen Flames. So I've played some video from the stage there. It's called Scorch and Torch, and it's in Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. And it's one of those games that I was so happy when it got ported to the Switch, because it did not. I played it originally on Wii U and I loved it, and I thought it's one of the best platformers I ever played. And I really wanted more people to play it, so I'm really glad that it's kind of getting some of the recognition it deserves. And it's one of the most memorable sequences in the game when you're playing it, is that you have this absolutely amazing level beforehand. I forget which world it is, it's like 4 or something like that. But beforehand, there's this track called Grassland Groove, which was actually just covered by Verazio Extrinsic in the David Wise month that just happened for DoD, which was great to see Tropical Freeze get some representation there as well. So Grassland Groove, I'm just going to play a bit of it for a second because it's so cool. Let's see if this is going to work. It's basically this big like Lion King moment. Fantastic music, really memorable visuals. You've got these puppets that you're jumping around on, dancing trees, everything. Transition back now. Super cool level. I don't know if that worked very well or not.
I just turned to the big screen right as you put it back on your camera.
Oh, it's all good. I mean, you can see it in the small screen too.
We've got some visuals going on. Let's take a look at that. And it's just like, no. And that's actually a great segue into one of the comments in chat. I think a Tuckling said, where was it? Tuckling said, "You have a great forehead."
It's all forehead. That's all I have these days.
It is. Yeah. It is. It's one of those things. There are people that can pull off that look, and there are people who can't. I know for a fact that I can't, because early pandemic days, when I was cutting my own hair, the first time I tried, I did not pick the right setting, and I just went right for it, and I was like, well, this is me now, and I just had to do the rest of it, and I guess it's like, I'm working from home. I'm just going to turn the camera off for a few weeks until this fixes itself. But you, Angry Polar Bear, can pull it off. So that's not a small thing. That is not an everyone thing. So you can play the keys, you can sing like no one else, and you can rock that look. Anything else before we go back into hibernation? And by which I mean out of hibernation.
Out of hibernation. Yeah, I was just gonna say so you come out of that like crazy like Lion King Grassland Groove track, which is all super happy and joyful, and then the next level is like everything is on fire, and this is pretty grim and dire, but also super memorable. And so both of those tunes just like locked together as like one of those moments where you realize how good of a game that is. So it was really fun to like try and make something that was more like full like synthwave, sort of wanting to be Mr. Street Cleaner, playing with arpeggios on the keyboard, some fun synth patches, and like a lot heavier drums. So it was really a fun track to do, and Ian again supplied some fantastic guitar for that as well. Just really knew what I wanted to get out of it, so that was really fun one to make, and I really like how that one sounds in the remix. The next two. One of my favorites, I know one of your favorites as well, is so there's Flexmex, which is the stage at ringside from Rhythm Heaven Fever, and the I'll play some silly clips when that's when that's on, and then following that is a track called Seventh Seal, and that one's actually just me, all me on the keyboards there, and it's from Bringer, which is a DS game.
All right. Excellent. So, this is Angry Polar Bears out of Hibernation, and here we go. Next 2 tracks coming right at you. I just realized that the music started because I wasn't paying attention to the Castlevania music. So I'm going to take a second
and reset it.
I'm going to do what I'm supposed to do, which is host a live streaming event without screwing it up. So let's keep it right here because this is Angry Polar Bears out of Hibernation.
Is that true?
All right. Here we are. I'm Evil Sonic. This is Angry Polar Bear. To my... I can't tell which... to that way. Angry Polar Bear's album Out of Hibernation. What'd we just hear?
So we just heard Flex Max from Rhythm Heaven
it.
Fever.
It's one of my favorites.
The ringside level, and then after that we heard Seventh Seal, which the original track's called Amati Ruins Seal from Somabringer. I'll talk about Flex Max first. So this is it's a very straight cover for the most part of a pretty fun tune. It's one of the most memorable mini games from that game. I mean, Rhythm Heaven has got so many little gems and hilarious moments in it. Basically it's the reporter interviewing the wrestler, and you've got three things you can do. So the reporter says, wabba dabba dabba, isn't that true? And you hit A, and he goes, yeah. And then she says, whoa, you go, big guy, and you hit AA, and he goes, hur, hur. And then the reporters say, pose for the fans, and he goes, hur, strikes a pose. And it's just, you're laughing the whole time because it looks so silly and it sounds really fun. So of course when you're playing the game, you're not really listening to the music that closely because you're trying to just hear the cues. But I love that one. I want to do it forever. So May 2021, it was minigame month, and I was like, yeah, it's gonna be Rhythm Heaven and it's gotta be ringside. So I just love this tune. I want people to hear it. It's so on this version, so it's me doing the keyboards and making some wrestler noises. You, Mr. Evil Sonic, are the reporters saying "pose for the fans," along with me in there too. My choir friend Sarah McGrath, she did a fantastic impersonation of the reporter's squeaky voice, which was really cool. Because for this album version, I wanted to not use actual sound clips from the game. I wanted to record it ourselves. So just really fun. And then Carrie Wood played bass on this one, unlike on the original, which just used I think I actually used fake Tony on the original one. So it was really sweet when Carrie agreed to play bass, and it just all fit in really well. It's just a silly, fun track. Some of the clips I put up there's one where it's somebody who just, instead of actually playing the game, they're just making the wrestlers pose every beat, and it's just it's such a funny video. I love it so much. One of the funny things for the production of this one as well, it's one of the latter ones that I got to Eric, but I kid you not, one of my few bits of mix feedback that I provided was that there needed to be more cowbell, because the cowbell is the real star of this thing. I went to some silly lengths.
Do that.
Oh, it's so good.
Need more cowbell.
When I was trying to transcribe it from the original, because it's just a fully mixed audio, you have to just pick out the parts by ear. I actually went to some crazy lengths. I isolated the frequency of the cowbell and EQ'd everything else out, and then I went through it at very slow speed, getting the exact rhythm of the part in there. So that was a silly high effort for a silly track, but it was pretty fun. I think I came 5th that month out of 16 or something, so it didn't do too badly, but obviously it stuck in people's heads.
5th out of 17.
The one that I thought about, I do know at the end of your post for the fans, you did record me a wubba dubba dubba, and I almost put that in there as a hidden extra, so maybe at some point that'll be a secret, the outtakes from the album.
I've had wubba dubba dubba that true stuck in my head for the past 3.5 years.
I'm sorry.
I haven't
I'm so
regretted
sorry.
a single second. It's been, if there's gonna be something stuck in your head, that's not bad.
Yeah, it's pretty good. And one day I will get around to some of the other Rhythm Heaven tracks that I want to do, because there's just too many good ones in there. So then the other track, very different flow, very different style. So this was it was July 2022, and it was Yasunori Mitsuda month, and everybody was going to do Chrono Trigger, and I did not want to do Chrono Trigger because it's not like it hasn't been done before. So I went digging again, and I found this game, Somabringer for the DS, came out in 2008, and I really liked the sound of this track. And the original one is actually in 4/4 for all of it except for one section, which is in 7/8. But when I listened to it, and that section got stuck in my head, and I was like, oh, what if I just make the whole thing 7/8? I think it might work. So I just kind of like figured out which little bits of melody or rhythm I needed to drop to make that work. And then this one was all me on keyboards, where I just took some encouragement from a few people, went digging into all the weird and wonderful sounds in my workstation keyboard that I might not normally use for anything else. I think it turned out really well. Like, it came kind of middle of the pack in terms of voting, but I was really happy with how it turned out. So I'm really pleased with the new mix on it as well. And I the only real change for this one was I spiced up the drums a little bit more because I think I just had more of a repeated loop the first time around. Yeah.
All right, excellent. So, anything else on those last two tracks, or anything you want to tease up for the next two?
Yeah, for the next two. We've got. Let me just pull my list over here. Oh yeah. Okay. So these are my throwback tracks. One is an '80s throwback, and one is an early '90s throwback. First one is it's called "Where Are All the Gods," and the original track is "Fearless Challenger" from La Mulana. Try and guess which song I might have been listening to or thinking about when I arranged this cover. It also features Ian on guitars, like so many others, doing a fantastic job. And then the second track, where I also had an early '90s pop song in my mind when I was arranging. It's called "Take the High Road." I think the original ones are just called "Road 3" or something, from a DOS shareware game called Sky Roads. And what's new for this version is that our own JC plays the bass on the Sky Roads track and did a fantastic job with it. So yeah, enjoy.
All right. Well, let's see if I get the music cues right this time. Like I said, it's funnier every time that I comment on it, but then when I don't comment on it, I actually screw it up. So keep it right here, because this is Angry Polar Bears Out of Hibernation. And we are back. Let me fix those cameras there. This, Angry Polar Bears out of hibernation. I'm Evil Sonic. I'm joined by Angry Polar Bear over there. What did we just hear? I know what we heard. I've got fond memories of hearing them from the first time when they arrived at DoD, but I want to hear it from the man himself. APB, tell us about the gods. Tell us about the High Road.
Yeah, we just heard tracks called "Where Are All the Gods," and the original one was "Fearless Challenger" from La Mulana, which the remake I believe was originally released on the Wii, although I played it on PC. And that featured me on the keys and Ian on guitars. And after that, we heard Take the High Road with music from Skyroads. But I'll talk about the La Mulana track first. This is a game that I love so much. It will amaze you and infuriate you. It's just incredible, quite an experience. I've got like a giant notebook full of all the notes that I took when I was playing the game, like writing down literally everything and remembering that the solution to a puzzle might be something that you found 10 hours ago in a completely different part of the ruins. So this was in August 2022, a free month, and I knew I wanted to do more La Mulana music. I actually did La Mulana for the very first DoD track that I did, solo piano of the main theme for a brevity month in 2018.
And you got a gold
and I got a gold for that, and so it was a good strong start, and it was nice to be well received in DoD for sure. It led to lots of good things. So this one, actually, I lie a little bit. The first thing that I thought of this month was I had heard, I think like the month before or something, I had heard Bonnie Tyler's Holding Out for a Hero, and I just thought to myself, I need to do a track in this style because it's just too much fun. It's like that full tilt power ballad, nothing held back, 80s style.
Can I jump in? I'm almost positive, if maybe I'm wrong, but that song was featured in the Disney Plus series Loki, and that came out around that time, and
maybe that was it. Yeah,
it could have been. There was like a great scene. It was Loki season 1, and there was like this whole like fight scene set to that music at a 1985 Renaissance fair. It doesn't matter why I know that off the top of my head.
Well, a lot of people know the song from Shrek 2, where Jennifer Saunders is singing it as the fairy godmother, but Bonnie Tyler, being a good Welsh girl, very dear to my heart, with her pretty famous songs, this one, and of course Total Eclipse of the Heart, both of which have music videos that are extremely extra, and just like full tilt. So I knew I wanted to do something in that style, and then I found myself listening to La Mulana again. I was like, oh yeah, Fearless Challenger, which is the music for the first area of the game, the Gate of Guidance. I just heard it working. So it was basically, it's sort of the cheating way of doing arrangements, which I learned from a panel at MagWest. The first MagWest I went to with Super Soul Bros, where they said they like to take one tune and then basically drop it onto the groove or the style of an existing song, and maybe the instrumentation. So it can really help you to like make some of the choices for you if you're sort of paying homage to a different song with the one that you're trying to cover, but you're still like fusing these two things to make something new. And I know you understand that very well with some of the things that we've worked on in the past.
We'll talk about that later, but
so love that song, love La Mulana. There's way too many glissandos in the piano part. I know that was called out in one of the reviews. It was like, oh, maybe there are too many, and I'm like, no, this is exactly what it needs to be.
There aren't enough.
I grabbed the actual like tom samples from like a Lindrum machine to sequence those in. They like pan from side to side as well. I don't know if that comes across in the stream, but there's actually a section in Holding Out for a Hero where there's an excessively long fake tom solo, which I love. And then maybe there were some real ones in there somewhere as well, but it definitely leans heavily on the drum machine stuff. It's got a bunch of arpeggios in there, again with the cheesy fake brass, which I love. And then Ian nailed the guitar, and we kind of hand the melody back and forth a bunch, and then do that sort of faster section at the end. And I think Ian had actually hurt his hand that month, so I managed to like nail those parts, even not being 100%, which was great. And it was really me trying to get out of my comfort zone as well in terms of like soloing, because it is not something that I'm used to doing, being a classical pianist guy, just saying like, hey, here's a chord, play something over the top of it. So like trying to figure out my own vocabulary and language for doing that. This was one of the ones that helped me with that. There is an Easter egg in there. I don't know if he's still in the chat, but oh no, he's got to run now. But there is an Easter egg that only Viking Guitar noticed, because it's one track that's just buried in the Reaper file. It's one of the brass parts does a but it's like you can't hear it in the mix at all because it's buried by another part, but I know it's there and Eric knows it's there. Now you all know it's there. See if you can find it. But a little bit of Final Countdown there. So that one's really fun. I knew it had to go on the album. And then the next one, the Sky Roads, it just another game that I remembered from shareware, cover discs and stuff like that back in the day. I did it for another free month. This was August 2021. It just another case of like, here's the game that maybe not many people know, or they probably never heard the music or thought about it. I just want people to hear it. I don't necessarily care about doing a particularly creative arrangement with it. The original is actually quite a bit faster, but I was struggling to get it to work, and then basically like 48 hours before the deadline, I tossed out the original version that I had, realized that the chord progression reminded me a little bit of Freedom by George Michael, which I think came out in like 1990, which has got the like that kind of a groove in the piano. Started playing around with it. It kind of came together pretty quickly, but it was definitely a scramble to get it to work. And then for the album, Eric had mentioned to me like, hey, this is going to sound, this would sound great with real bass. I put out a call on DoD Discord, and Jay answered, and did a fantastic job with just nailing like the slapping and getting that groove. It was again just I'm so grateful for all the collaborators, and so thankful that people want to work with me and contribute to this stuff. Just really happy with how that turned out. And I think it's also, I know maybe this is a little digression, but there's always a lot of talk in DoD about, in this server afterwards, about ranking of songs and placement and people who are happy and some people get disappointed, and feeling maybe that they put a lot of effort into a track and got overshadowed by something else. I know with just the standard, the caliber of the musicians that are in DoD these days submitting, like it's nuts. Like you listen to everything, every listening party, and you're like, this deserves to win. And then you hear the next track, you're like, no, this deserves to win. And it's so hard to vote. It's so hard. And I bring that up because this Sky Roads track, like it's the lowest rank of anything that that was on the album. I think it came like 22nd out of 37, something like that.
I don't want to dwell on it, but I remember thinking that month that I was on a track that came ahead of yours, and I was like, holy shit, I'm on a track that came ahead of Angry Polar Bear. I could go at length about like DoD placing and ranking. Like, my biggest thing is you have zero control over what the other people are doing, And that is, like, you could pour your heart out and make a fucking masterpiece, and that doesn't stop someone else from doing the same thing, and it hits just as... For anyone who has ever felt even the slightest bit, like, you know, negative about how they placed in DoD, go to September 2005 and listen to the track that came in second, because that is all you need to know. That is the month that Norg did Fall of the Iron Spire from Wizard and Warrior 2, which is a goddamn classic, and it came in first, and it absolutely deserved it. And Carbohydro M did Unsealed from Zelda. I think it was Link to the Past. It absolutely deserved gold. It just so happened that two songs that absolutely deserved gold happened at the same time.
Yeah.
You cannot control what other people do, especially in a free month.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I mean, and that's been the case for 20 years. Like, it's So, and I bring it up because even obviously, like, the results come out and I see how low it ranked, and I'm on the one hand I'm thinking, like, wow, I still managed to. I didn't come last, and I started this 48 hours ago. And on the other hand, it's like, well, but you know what? I still think it's a good arrangement. I'm proud of it. I want other people to hear it, and I know that's true for other people as well. Like, there's good tracks can find a life beyond DoD, and that's why I've been really waiting to get this album out, because it just gives me the opportunity maybe to get a little bit more attention on some of the ones that got really overshadowed. But I'm happy with them all. I'm happy with how they all turned out, and especially these newer versions. And that's like a good reminder to me to not get too hung up on the rankings. I know it's easier said than done sometimes, especially when you really pour your heart into a track. But I think that's, I know every time that conversation comes up, I think I say something along the lines of like, if you win, amazing, be proud of it, like, feel good, bask in that glory. If you come last, who cares? Like, you made music, we listened to it, we probably loved it. It's like, the rankings, feel good about them if you do well, don't feel bad about them if you don't do well. And I've had tracks that have come in first, and I've had tracks that have come in last. And
Did you have
it's
a
fine.
last place
It's
track?
all fine. It was a collab one that was done for a free month. Yeah, a bunch of people were on it, but yeah, it was, I think it was free month, end of 2020. But yeah, it came in last, and it was with Pinus and Darmok, and Alexander Brandon was on there as well. I'm trying to remember who else. And it was a really fun track to make, and I'm really happy with that one as well and how it turned out. And it just goes to show that there's such a high caliber of musician and standards in DoD, and I think every month that just becomes more and more clear with the type of stuff we hear getting submitted.
Well,
but we should probably go on to the last two tracks.
Yeah,
here.
we'll get to the last two tracks, but not to brag. I've been on a last place track that was a solo entry, so first of all, that was all me. And secondly, I still like that track a lot, and I will listen to it.
Exactly. Yeah.
And yeah, that's the pros, the cons, the strikes and gutters of Dwelling Duels. I'm Evil Sonic. I'm with Angry Polar Bear. This is the album release for Out of Hibernation, and here we go.
The last
Keep
two
it right
tracks.
here. Last two tracks. right.
gonna let this.
Oh, here we go. Were you about to say something that was meant to be like off mic?
Oh, did I ruin the end of the song?
No. It's good.
Okay.
You didn't say anything. I didn't turn our volume up until after the
Okay.
Rolling Doom music started, so you're good. Your image
I was
is
just
still
gonna say,
like
I'm gonna-
a Pictionary.
I'm gonna let this Sonic play out because I'm enjoying where this is going. Okay,
Okay.
let's stop before they make it lewd.
I'm Evil Sonic. This is Pictionary Sonic. Oh. This is Angry Polar Bear. This has been Out of Hibernation. God damn, that was a great album. It is getting released tomorrow.
Well, thank you.
Where can one find such things? I'm gonna turn this
So-
music down, like, cause we're at a
Yeah.
we're not coming back to music, so I'm just gonna turn off the foo bar there.
Sure. Yeah, so angrypolarbear.bandcamp.com. I don't know if I don't think I can paste that in the chat, but you probably can.
I can chat. You can chat.
Let's see.
You know how to type things. I can hear you typing now. Yeah.
Hey, there we
is.
go. I just didn't know if I'd have permission or not. The
I can pin that.
so yeah, it's out tomorrow. I might even push the publish button on it when we get to the end of this stream, just because it's already tomorrow somewhere. It is pay what you want, so I just want people to listen to it. I want people to enjoy it as much as I've enjoyed making it over basically the last 4.5 years. And especially if you do go to the Bandcamp page once it's up, read the credits, because there's a lot of thank yous in there, and I'll maybe highlight some of those in a minute here as well when we're talking. First, maybe I'll just talk about those last two tracks, if that's all right.
Absolutely, please do.
So first we had Spice Up Your Life, which was the MS-DOS Dune game from 1992. I do recall, maybe even with my track record of naming tracks, I think there was some disappointment that there was not, in fact, a Spice Girls reference in that song when it showed up in DoD. It was for a mag month, but a particular mag month. It was the one where it was all virtual, and we were in the virtual Gaylord conference room, because it was December 2020, so early January 2021 when we heard it, and it was PC versus console. So I'm Team PC, obviously. There's a few different tunes in there from the game. It starts with one called Chinese Eyes, and then there's the main part of it's called Spice Opera. And then there's a track called Two, which is the music that plays when you're flying around in the Ornithopter and having those cool, like pre-rendered flying over the dune videos from the visuals. I do love this whole soundtrack, though. It's really cool. It's a guy called Stefan Peak, and it's actually, when I was looking into it a bit more, because I remembered playing the game as a kid, I borrowed it off a friend and played it, and it kind of blew my mind then for a few reasons. But it's actually a really good example of video game music having a life outside of the game from the very beginning, because they actually did like a concept album, like vinyl, I think, even of this soundtrack, and released it separately from the game, which is really cool for like early 90s. And he's actually been revisiting it recently with it's like a basically remastered versions of it. So he even replied to me on Facebook the other day when it randomly came up in a group there. I think he was showing off his Amiga workstation that was used for like the sampling and music for the game, and so that was really cool. And I know WSD have covered that Spice Opera track as well on their most recent album. I think it's the most recent one. I've got it on a floppy disk somewhere. So it's a really cool game. It had a weird development history because there were kind of two games in parallel development with the rights. One of those ended up being this game, and the other one ended up being Dune 2, which is not really a sequel, but that was the Westwood Studios game that then basically spawned like Command and Conquer and the whole real-time strategy genre. But the DOS one, the CD version, It had voice acting, and it also had like full motion video clips from the David Lynch movie, which I like having that play on my whatever it was at the time of 486 or something, was mind-blowing. Like pre-DVD, pre-anything. Like the idea that you were watching clips from a movie on your computer was nuts.
Yeah, I remember that era.
It's it's so that was a really fun one. This again, talking about like scores of the last track. So this is the lowest score on the album and the lowest kind of ranking if you take into account the number of entries. But again, I'm really proud of it, and I remember even it being, you know, especially being in essentially a free month, a mag month, like having incredible competition, but at the same time, at least one person like specifically called it out and named it in the discussion afterwards and said that they enjoyed it, and that made me feel great. The other track then, the last one, this was the most recent thing on the album. This was from earlier this year, and this was from the Tornado Solos month, which was for VGM Con in April of this year. And it's actually it's the only one that's not my arrangement. It's Darmok's arrangement, who came up with the concept of saying it's Tornado Solos, everybody's doing Pictionary, everybody's going to be like shreddy fast doing these crazy Tim Follin things. What if we take Pictionary but we take the groove from Treasure Master instead? And that was the whole concept of it. And so yeah, we had a little bit of back and forth on like getting the sections in order and everything. It came together really well. The hilarious part, which I remembered when I sent it to Eric, because this was basically the last addition to the album, was I actually recorded most of the keyboard parts and like the synth lines on my little tiny Korg keyboard on the bed in Eric's spare room, because I was visiting them prior to VGM Con and it was super last minute. So yeah, on this little thing here was where all the lines were recorded. So that's hilarious. Like, you know, I've actually gotten quite good at recording stuff on the road because I like to say yes to people and commit to doing things, and then I'm like, oh wait, but I'm traveling, so I can like take my whole microphone rig with me. I can take that little keyboard and actually do quite a lot with it. So that's pretty neat. It's also a notable track because it's the only one on the album that got a medal. It came third in that Tornado Solos month, and with me on the keys and Darmok on the bass and guitars, and then of course Kev on the drums, and Kev mixed it for DoD as well. And it, you know, I just really loved the sound of that one. It was a really fun way to end the album because it's just like a cool groove to settle into, and then it's got that silly extra note right at the end. And again, just I think doing things in there that I would not have been comfortable doing 4 years ago when the first track starts, like basically the comping on chords with the clavichord there, and synth soloing and putting those things together. And I think it's just like, it's a really good like way to end the album to show the, for me personally, like growth from you know, how I was making music 4 years ago to the things that I will say yes to doing today. I'm really really happy with that one, the way that one turned out, and was happy that Darmok and Kev agreed to put it onto the album.
That's excellent.
So that's it. That's out of Hibernation.
Where can we find this album?
So, angrypolarbear.bandcamp.com. It probably doesn't appear yet because I didn't put it up for pre-order, so it might not appear until I hit the button to publish, but I'll probably do that shortly.
I'm going to put that in the Dio Discord announcements. It was Angry Polar Bear.
All one word, .bandcamp.com.
Okay, I spelled that all correctly. It's in the Dwelling of Discords announcements page. So something you just said sparked a thought in me. I don't know if I've ever come to you and said, hey, I've got an idea, and that you've said no. I've come to you with ideas that I've had to back out on.
Yeah.
But it's never been on your end. You're always up for it. I don't know if that's because you foolishly have a soft spot for me or something, but
I do. But no, you have great ideas.
I have ideas. I don't know if I'd say I have great ideas as a blanket statement. Personal story, when I was in college and all my friends and I were doing like film, video, TV stuff and screenwriting, there was my claim to fame was that when we were in a writing session, I would have 20 ideas and there would be 15 okay ideas, 3 really terrible ideas that no one could ever hear about, 2 ideas that were like pretty funny, and 1 idea that was just brilliant. So like most of the stuff I do is not, it's okay, but so let me dial it back a second. I've had a great experience working with you. I remember, I think it was Dave had a really strong reaction to my MagFest, the December 2021 track, where I did a cover from Dust and Elysian Tale, and you reached out to me and said that Dave really liked that, and that you would be interested, and I was in collaborating with me sometime. I took that and I ran with it. I was like, okay, this is someone I can trick into making my tracks better. And we ran with that.
It's like what I've learned from DoD is it's the friends we made along the way. It's cheesy, but like when I first entered with that Lima Lana piano track, I was very much in that mindset of like, oh, here are all these people that I know in the VGM world now. I kind of want to like prove myself a little bit. Like let's see what they think of this. And it was obviously like shocking to with that one, which I think mostly because it surprised people, because it was still it still felt like the era when there was a lot of like DoD was quite guitar heavy, and it was rare to get a solo piano entry, and I think that just caught people's ear, and it being Brevity Month as well. And then working on a few things since then, or the few tracks that I did immediately, or in the years following that, actually, were still solo efforts, because I felt like I needed to again prove myself or demonstrate what I could do. And then I just started realizing that it was more fun and had better results if you work with people, and whether that's like roping Ian into doing guitar solo or anybody else, and what I've just found is that people are so open to the idea. Some really cool things come from it, especially if it's like that real synergy of like bouncing ideas off each other and working hard to make something like the best it can be. That's really exciting, and I really, really enjoy that. And then like I don't know if there's been a few things recently where like I've just known that there was a track that I wanted to show up in DoD, and haven't even necessarily had the energy or the time to do it myself, but I was like, I really want to hear somebody else do this, and I've just said like, here you go, please do this at some point. Like Corey, the Little Big Adventure 2 track, like I think I sent that to Corey like well over a year before he was actually able to do it. But just like getting to know people, knowing like obviously like their strengths, and there are so many, and just all of the amazing creativity that there is out there for doing this for ourselves and for anybody else who cares to listen. It's just so much fun, and that's like really what this album is, just a celebration of that for me.
Yeah. So, okay. Excuse me. Asking a question as I'm yawning. Great hostmanships here. Anyway, how did you first hear about DoD? Like, how'd that come in?
So it was 2017. so there was a point. So I'd been playing here in Vancouver with the Runaway Four and doing shows in a few places, and we tried to do a little mini tour by ourselves down to Seattle and Portland. But 2016 was kind of the year when we started making these connections in the wider VGM scene, and Ian Lucky was one of the people that did that, because I think he was scoping out a future Kirby tour, and basically just like Facebook friended a whole bunch of people up and down the West Coast to make connections. And he and I chatted a few times. We ended up contributing a track to his huge tribute album 64. And then it was really when I decided to I realized that I could come and meet some of these people at the first MagWest in 2017. And sometime, I think it was before that. Yeah, it must have been a month or two before that. But Ian had won DoD with his Symphony of the Night track, where he did it as a I think it was a silent movie kind of style piano thing, and it was so good. And I think he'd shared that elsewhere, like on Facebook or something else, and it was slightly confusing for me, because I was like, who is Scrab Cakes? What does that mean? And then I was like, why do people not know that? Like, why is it a revelation that he did this track? And so I looked at the comments and stuff, and then found the DoD site, and was like, oh, I guess this is a thing that happens a lot. And then at that first Mag West, I got to meet tons of people, including Viking Guitar, including members of KDB, including Warrior Bob, and folks from the Koopas, and learned about like the Shiz and DoD. And it's, the two things are more separate now than they used to be, but we're still very much intertwined at that point. And that was really it. It was through that connection, and then it was really a case of like knowing I wanted to be part of this at some point and contribute to it, and not knowing what to do. And then when I went to my first Mag Fest, then, which was the following 2018, January 2018, met a bunch of these people again, and then on the plane home, I was like, oh, so I went to the DoD listening party at that MagFest. I learned more about it, talked to a bunch of people about it, and then on the way back, on the plane, actually, I was like, okay, brevity month, it's got to be under a minute. What can I do? And then I came up with that idea of the La Mulana track, and that was my entry point.
So you just mentioned the Shiz. One of the things that I did while we were in the listening party, because it's something you said, was I was checking out the Shiz. I was looking up I was trying to find the DoD comments on Spice Up Your Life, because I had a feeling like I might have said something. And so on the Shiz, this might have been the first time where it's like, Catagen hasn't posted this on the Shiz yet, so I'm going to. And so DoD PC versus console month entries and voting. I started that thread. No big deal. But my comment for Spice Up Your Life, the title wins points for me. I love referential titles, even if this doesn't end up being a Britpop 90s girl power mix. I mean, you'd be first place for the next 4 months if it was, but c'est la vie. I'm interested to know how much of the synth is sequenced or played live. I said that so many times, like, I didn't know how to tell what was sequenced or played live, because, like,
yeah,
I don't know how to play an instrument, so nobody else does either. So if it sounds really good, it's probably sequenced. I'm gonna guess most, if not all, is played live, which wins some more points. This is a solid entry. I'm also gonna say in this, that was back when it was send in votes to dodsongs@gmail.com, because that's how we used to vote. So
yeah, it's funny going back and looking at those old comments on things. I dug into a lot of the reviews, especially when thinking about things on the album, and thinking, yeah, if I get a chance to do over one of these tracks, what would I want to do with it? Is it sometimes it's purely production things, and I knew that by with Eric doing the mixing that it was much lower, a much greater chance he'd be able to fix or not cause any issues that I caused in the original tracks, especially the really early ones. But also to look at like how people reacted to either the idea or the arrangement or the concept of it or something. And so there's a few things that stuck with me from reviews that that made it into these newer versions, and that made it kind of nice to like revisit things in that way. And not that I don't know, these aren't necessarily like the definitive versions. Like I'm still proud of the ones that are in DoD. It's just these ones get a bit of extra polish, and in some cases get extra features. Game of the Year edition.
Nice way to put it. Do you remember maybe it was DoD or somewhere else. It works with DoD because it's all about the comments and the reviews there. But do you remember like a review in particular or a comment in particular? Like I know for myself, I remember it was like a Twitch comment. I don't want to make this the Evil Sonic show, so I'm not going to go into detail on that right now. But like, was there ever a comment from a musician that you just so respected that you were like flabbergasted they even noticed you, or like a comment that just stuck with you, something that like really turned your head and shook you?
There's a few that come to mind really quickly. There's some that weren't very nice, and it's funny like that the I think that very first entry that I did, where it was like I wasn't even messing around with MIDI or anything like that. I was just recording audio straight out of my keyboard, and did a bit of comping of some of the parts, but it's just the piano sound of my keyboard. And I think somebody made a comment about like, it sounds like FL keys or some other like stock plugin, like yuck or something like that. And I was like, come on, it's just my Yamaha. So like some of that stuff can sometimes be the frustration of the anonymity. We have a bit of a way to mitigate that now with the bot if something really needs clarifying, the anon bot. Although I don't like to use it too much. But or do I?
Thank you. I'll leave it at that and let you keep going.
Yeah. But there's a few like there's definitely tracks that I've done where I almost had like a specific person in mind that I wanted to appreciate it. I know that in the pre-show there you played Null Flugel, and basically when I thought of that idea in the shower, my goal was to make Andre Beller laugh, because it was
Andre
Beller, I'm gonna take this.
So influential in so many ways.
So that's one of the things is want to make Andre laugh. I can't remember what the exact comment was. I'd have to go digging for it. But the month that I put in the Dune, the Spice Up Your Life, I'm pretty sure there was a comment somewhere from Street Cleaner about really liking that one, and I was like, wow. I mean, here's somebody that I really admire as a musician, somebody putting his stuff out there and putting on great shows and having a sound that's very different to anything that I used to be familiar with. And so like, oh hey, I'm dabbling in some synthy stuff, and somebody who is a legit synthwave artist is like recognizing it. It's really, really neat. And obviously like the connections there through the shiz and the scene and everything, but that felt really, really good. And one, and I'll have to be careful about how I say this because I know it there's lots of layers to it for lots of people, but I think that first month, one of the listening party comments as my, there's not much time for comments in Brevity Month, but a few were flying through. And one, I forget who it was, somebody had said, wow, if this is live, this is incredible. And then it was actually Sean Babbitt, Damon9623, who said something like, well, if it's not live, then it doesn't belong in DoD. And I was like, okay, I understand how this community works. And at that point, I think it was when Hackstock was running things, and I think I was like, oh crap, like, was I not allowed to like comp things together? Did the whole thing have to be one take? Like, did I not understand the rules? And I like panic messaged him saying like just but you know, that was just really nice. Actually, another one was geez, it's Andre again. It was the second time that I entered, I did the song from the Wonderful 101, and that was for a free month in April 2019. Not on this album, but there will be a new version of that coming soon. It just had to get bumped from this release for a few reasons. But that one was it's me playing on keyboards, but it's basically a MIDI file. Like it sounds like it's MIDI, and then me singing over the top, and I just recorded all the parts for it, because it's like a very like boisterous all male choir singing, the Unstoppable Wonderful 101, like, you know, it's this very fun like Saturday morning cartoon kind of thing. And I think Andre made the comment in the listening party, like, I want to sing tags with this person. And I was like, yes. And then later on, what am I doing? I'm recruiting Andre and Joe and Norg to do my Sam and Max barbershop track, and just like I think it's maybe less like, the comments feel really good, but not nearly as good as asking somebody like Norg to collab and them saying yes, I'll do it. Like
that feeling when you ask someone and they say yes and they're into it. I mean, I felt that way the first time I asked you to collab. Like, you reached out to me after that, like, 2021 December track, and said that you'd be interested in doing something. I was like, oh my god. Because and that was the first thing we did together, was that brevity track, Don't Dance Mad, Dance Fast.
Yeah.
Which I want to redo for my parts only. Your parts are perfect. I don't need to change anything. I need to, because that was back before I knew how compression worked. So there are a bunch of tracks from like 21, 22 that I need to redo for my own edification. But yeah, there is that thing about like asking someone to be on a track, and sometimes they just never answer, or it's I'm too busy. But then like someone that you respect that says, I remember feeling. This was after I had introduced Jackie to DoD, so like she was in the mix at that point. She knew some of the players, and I remember like when you said that you'd be up to collaborate sometime. I was like, oh, Jackie, guess who I'm gonna collaborate with? And it was such a big deal, because I was a nobody back then, but no.
Oh, and like, I still felt like a nobody. Still feel like it in some ways. That is the
DoD feeling. So you can get golds. You can do all this. Like, you can have a track. Like, there are people that never got a medal that still loom large in my mind because they had a track that I still keep on my playlist. It is one of those wonderful things about DoD that I always talk about this in terms of, there are different time spans of DoD where there is that like 3 to 5 day period where everyone is voting and listening, and nobody knows who did what, or but you don't know. And that's what we focus on. That is the comments that happen in that 3 to 5 day span we live and die by. But those tracks are still up there on that website for decades.
Yeah.
just waiting to be discovered. And that's beautiful and that's wonderful.
Yeah, and it's I was having a really good conversation with the MPF the other day about this and about how like I've tried to since I've been in this world of spending a lot of time listening to music that's being made by friends and by people that I know. I try to, if I'm listening to somebody's thing at some random place, like at the gym or whatever, I'll send them a message saying like, "Oh hey, my gym soundtrack today is birthday or is whatever." Like that's how I got chatting a lot to Ian. Really, was just I kept saying, "Hey, I keep listening to your album. It's really good," and then seeing other people do that, like where the man here was sharing playlists and things that are on the list for the day or things stuff like that, and you see your track there, and it's like it just makes you feel so good. It's the idea that I mean I know sometimes it can feel like, especially given how quick the conversation moves after results are revealed and all the rest of it, it can feel like you get that little, you get that moment of attention when your track's played in the listening party, and then maybe nobody ever talks about it again, or maybe it comes up in a few times in reviews, but it gets overshadowed by other things, and you feel like that's it, that moment's gone, like dust in the wind, whatever. And so to have reinforcement that like, actually no, these tracks do have a life outside of that, and people are coming back and listening to them or adding them to their playlist. That feels so good, and that's one reason why I wanted to get this stuff out there, because it feels like it's another way just for me to like encourage that and say, hey, maybe you only heard this once before during the listening party, but hey, maybe listen to it again, slightly different context. Maybe it will stick with you, and that would be really cool for me. I realized just as I was talking then, I was thinking about acknowledgements and other people I need to thank, and I realized I totally forgot during the listening party to mention that the fantastic art for the album is done by Tuck. I love it so much. We talked about ideas for a while, and then when he finally sent me the the draft, the first mock-up of this, I was like, yes, that's it.
You and Tuck,
it's so cool.
I could talk for days about you and Tuck, because you're both so talented. You're both really great at keys, but you have you kind of have different like wheelhouses.
Yeah.
And I remember that was something where when I was like I was collaborating with you for a while on things, and like you were my go-to keys guy, like. And I remember there was the first time I was like, I kind of want to work with Tuck. How do I break this? And it was like, no, it's okay. It's not like a bad thing.
Yeah.
And we did. I think it was the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles the medley we did, which had Andre Beller. But that was the one where I asked both you and Tuck to join, and in different capacities, and it was like, this is one of those things that I find very interesting, where it's like you can be an incredible keys player, but you have different approaches. Like I know, for lack of like, just to kind of simplify it, like I don't know how to describe it, but if I want if I want to bring someone in to like just play the notes perfectly and do things like really well, I know that's a you thing. And if I want someone to improvise and just like, I don't quite know what I want and I've got like a blank space, I think that's a Tuck thing. But I also know that you and he have been looking to, for lack of a better term, like encroach on the other's area. Like I know you've wanted to do some more improvisational things, and he's wanted to do some more like precision things. So like me as a dumb guitarist, I don't know how to describe that because it's just like, I just hold the thing and I hit the I hit the strings and it makes the sound. But like, there are different styles of keys playing in there and different backgrounds.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one thing I love about the scene, and I loved about it right from the very beginning, and even in my old band and everything, was the fact that we all came from different. There's so many people that have come from different parts of music and completely different experiences, and like I'm the stereotypical classically trained kid. I grew up playing piano, classical piano. I was very disdainful of modern music because that was not something I'd spent a lot of time listening to, and I found my way into broader tastes and appreciating other stuff a whole lot more. But I'm like, some parts of that training are so deeply ingrained in me, like needing sheet music for a lot of things. Like I have rarely performed on stage with anybody without having sheets in front of me, and then when I see people that can get up there and do all of that with it's all in their head, and that's most guitar players, and that's keyboard players like Tuck or like Kubosh or others, and just seeing like you can still do this, exercise this same skill of being able to play keyboard and make sounds and think about it in a completely different way, and come out with different results, potentially, but maybe sometimes end up in the same place, except like I'm thinking about, I'm going to the root, then the fourth, and then the fifth, and then this, and somebody else is thinking about it in a completely different sense of like the frets, or like how they're visualizing that music in their head. Like, I've tried to learn guitar multiple times, and I cannot get my head around the fact that you can play the same note in different places, because on a piano it's one place, one note. Like, it's pushing buttons, but what I think is really cool, and this is something that came out of my like conversations that I had with Tuck especially, is like I have no idea how he does what he does. But he has said to me, I have no idea how you do what you do. And that's like, it blows my mind, because it just shows how subjective it is, how hard it is to actually like rank things or think about one thing being better than another, and how it really doesn't matter at all. I know there's all the conversations about like who's the greatest guitar player, or who's the better whatever, and you get people who are like, got incredible technical skill, but the music feels like it's got no soul, and then you got somebody who can play two notes and make it like tell an entire story, and that's true with with songs as well. Like more complicated, you can attach a certain level of skill or ability to that, but that doesn't in and of itself make it good music. And you can have good music without having any of that. Some of the best songs that are out there are just the super simple things, and it's really neat, like trying to I try to figure out, when I hear something that I really like, I try to figure out what is it that I like about it. And sometimes it's just that it has simplicity, or that it's played with great feeling or expression, or you can really feel it come through. And sometimes I'm appreciating the fact that, like, holy shit, that is insanely difficult and amazing and jaw-dropping, and like, and I mean, the people who are then like the real like S-tier musicians are the ones that can do both effortlessly, that have the chops but also have the heart and the the ability to convey something with it. And those are the ones where you stop and you listen, and your jaw is on the floor. But it's that's been something really validating from DoD for me, is even when it's something that I have felt less good about that I've entered, seeing that somebody enjoyed it makes me feel good. And I think that's true for everybody. It's nice to have that reinforcement and reminder that people listened to this thing and they enjoyed it.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the great things about DoD. It can, I often worry a bit sometimes because there's something about like the effort that goes in where you are putting so much of yourself into a track each, if you're submitting every month and you're like putting yourself out there, and if it doesn't land, I know like that can feel like it sucks. And just knowing the history of DoD, there's this sort of idea of like it's this ruthless place where your track's gonna get ripped to shreds, and I really hope that's gone away and that people don't feel that way anymore. Because it is that thing, like when you are submitting a track to DoD, it's the culmination of a month. You came up with the idea, there's a concept in there, there's an arrangement, you practiced it, you performed it, you mixed it and mastered it, and depending on where you are in your own personal journey, that can be a little thing or it can be a huge thing. But then when it's all up there in the playlist, it is next to tracks that are really polished or really not, and you never know, and that's something that's out of your control. I think top of mind for me, what keeps me up at night is I don't want anyone to ever feel like truly bad inside about the reaction they get to DoD, because it is still, if you really, if you want to belittle this and just bring it down to the level, we're a bunch of stupid nerds who make video game music in our spare time. Like, what are we doing here?
For each other.
Yeah, like we are very often doing this to make each other laugh. So take it seriously, because it's good to work at your craft and make music, but also like don't take it so seriously. Find that middle ground where like you have a healthy relationship with it.
Yeah, I agree absolutely. It's it should be fun.
Yes.
I can't think of what a lot of it boils down to. Is you should get some enjoyment out of it. It should be fun. I when you're making something creative and putting it out there for others, there's always something about that is less fun, and that is its vulnerability. It's the fact that you're putting something out there, you're opening yourself up to criticism as much as praise. Somebody's going to tell you that your snare sucks, or like there's all those things that are out there, but there's it's an important skill to learn and to practice, is being able to do that. It's it's true of live performance as well. I have very different things going on in my head when I'm on stage with my choir singing like I will be on Saturday with 40 other people and 10 people on a part, and there's a little bit of safety in numbers there, and I've never really had an issue like being in front of people doing that. I have a solo on Saturday that is just me. Literally nobody else is singing.
Do you have
for
a link
one line
for this?
and
'Cause if you watch,
oh, I don't have. I need to actually do that tonight. I need to make the YouTube link, but I will. So
Watch
my
the
choir is the
space,
Vancouver
everyone.
Cantata Singers, and it'll be on the YouTube channel on Saturday, 2 p.m. Pacific. But it's like that's extreme vulnerability, right? It's like just your voice, nobody else. There's 800 people in this church who are listening to you, and even it used to be the case with live performance that just stayed in the room, right? If I screw up that solo, then I know and the choir knows and those 800 people know, but nobody else has to know. Nowadays, everything's recorded or live streamed or whatever. Like it's you have to be okay with the fact that whatever mistakes you make or things that weren't perfect are going to be out there for potentially forever, and that's fine because that's true for everybody. And the thing that I love about DoD, or where it's been so good for me, is the deadline. The fact that you have this bit of structure around something that you're making, and a little bit of constraints maybe in terms of like the theme or something, that drives some extra creativity perhaps. But the fact that you have a deadline, especially if you're working with other people, the fact that you need to accommodate other people's schedules to either make sure they get things to you or you get things to them in time, it makes you find that level of sort of decisiveness of saying, maybe this isn't perfect, but this is good, this is fine, this is what I'm going to provide, or provide to that other person, or this is what I'm going to submit. And it's I don't know, there's that old adage of like works of art are never finished, they're only ever abandoned. I forget where that one comes from, but it's a really, it's such a true thing. Like whatever it is, there's always, I could have gone back and forth with Eric 50 more times, and every single track there, like oh no, this one note in measure 35 needs to be slightly louder, or like all of that stuff, right? You could do that, but if you do that, you give in to that, and you'll never actually get anything out there. And DoD having its deadline gives you enough of that motivation to just say, yep, this is done, I'm hitting submit. And being okay with whatever flaws or things that weren't perfect, you weren't able to include or weren't able to fix. And that's been such a good skill to learn, and to practice over and over again by submitting things.
Yeah. That's very well put. Okay, so a little bit of personal history. What's your video game origin story? Like, what was the first video game you played and were like, oh, I like this more than like playing outside?
Oh, that's a tough one. We got a computer in the house, a 286, when I was like 8, so like 1990, and that was the first computer that we had. And I think I'd played on a few others before that point at friends' houses, but nothing really substantial, obviously, as much as you could do when you're playing with it, playing on it by yourself. And we only had a limited set of games for that. That they bought like a pack of 5 games on discs. Anyway, one of those games was Outrun. And even though I was hearing music through a PC speaker, single channel, singular chip tune,
the way it was meant to be heard,
it stuck with me, that the melody in particular of the one tune, the Magical Sound Shower. And I'd remember playing that at other people's houses as well, where they had more sophisticated computers, or you had stuff where you could actually, like, you loaded the game from one side of the cassette tape and then you turned it over and that played the tape for the music for the game while you were playing, like stuff like that. So that's probably the earliest stuff that I really remember. And then, through childhood, there was a lot of, the stuff we were playing at home was often the rare games that we were bought as presents, me and my brother, or that we got off. We were allowed to have like a subscription to a magazine, and you'd get shareware games and stuff on the cover discs, which is why I hold a lot of those dear in my heart, like Commander Keen and all those types of things. And then console games were played at other people's houses, because we didn't have console at home, but other people had. NES, definitely remember playing Duck Hunt and stuff. And then the big one was when our childminder, so kind of after school care, before my parents finished work, they had a Sega Mega Drive. And so really the first one that really like sticks with me is getting a bit obsessed about it is Sonic the Hedgehog 2. And it's a pretty good game to get obsessed about, because it's fun, it looks good, it sounds really good, and I just have a soft spot for every single tune in that game, because it was it was like this very focused, limited time of fun. Like, you're you're at this place for an hour and a half after school. This is the only time you get to do this thing. We've got to share turns between all the other kids that are there. Just really, really stuck with me.
Something you mentioned.
I was 18 before I got to own my own console when I bought myself a Game Boy.
Yeah. The first console you bought was a Game Boy.
Yeah, Game Boy Color.
At 18.
Yeah.
Interesting. You're not that much older than me. But I had a Game Boy. I remember playing. I'm trying to remember when I first had a Game Boy. It was before Pokemon. I don't remember. But you mentioned something earlier in the party tonight about making songs that incorporate like mainstream music, and how you and I may have like a track record there. And I'm just looking at your DoD page, and I don't know if it's every song that I've done that has been like a cover of a mashup between VGM and mainstream music, but you and I have done a lot of these tracks together.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's anything you want to say about that. I don't want to hijack this because this is your night in my book. So
it's I would say a good reason that you gravitated to ask me to do those things is that I was already doing it myself in one way or another. I think the arrangement shortcut that I mentioned earlier that I picked up from Super Soul Bros of take one song and stick it on top of another, or like my brain loves to mash music together. It was a really good asset to have when we were making like mega medleys for Runaway 4, but it really good of thinking what tunes go well together or lead into another tune. But I mean, that's how I started DoD, was like, oh, it's brevity month, what can you do in less than a minute? Oh right, there's a Chopin piece that's known as the Minute Waltz. What if I take La Mulana and I basically make it sound like the Minute Waltz by Chopin? So that was the start of it. I did it with a bunch of other stuff as well. Even before I started getting into the synthy things, I did for the Damon 9623 month, I did the Weapon Get, but it was Ravel's Bolero. I did what else did I do? The start of my real like lengthier streak in DoD was April 2020, when I heard I'd been playing near Automata, and realized the amusement park track in there, that bit of the melody made me think of some of the music of Astor Piazzolla, the Argentinian Nuevo Tango composer, and I basically took that melody and then put it onto his instrumentation and style to make Milonga del Carnaval de las Máquinas Tristes, so like that's my track record is doing that, because it's a cheat, but it's so effective. It doesn't surprise me that like
you say that's a cheat, and like by contrast, my process is I want to make Tub Thumpin' into a video game track. So I went to VG lead sheets to just try to find songs that had a similar key signature and tempo. And I found one that was kind of close, and I was like, okay, let's smash these things together. Like so you had an ear for it. It was something that you like picked up on. I was just like, if I look, I'll find things that I can mash together like Legos or puzzle pieces that don't quite fit, and I'll make them fit. So
yeah, well Well, that was the Lama Lana one on the album was that. Like, I decided that I wanted to do Holding Out for a Hero before I decided that it was going to be Lama Lana. It was just, it took me a while to figure out what track was going to go on top of that one. I just knew I wanted to imitate that style. But I mean, like yeah, I mean, your mashups have worked so well. Like they're super
They're
effective.
also,
It was so much fun to work on them.
I feel so weird taking credit for them because like it's all so tenuous in my mind. Like the Sims mashup would not have happened if it wasn't for the Rainbow Rat cover of Sims 3, because I just have since they made that, and I love those kids. But since that track came out, and I can picture JJ singing, like, Load a Sim, and I was like, wait, that kind of matches up with the Stop Making Sense. And I was like, Load a Sim. And so if it wasn't for Rainbow Rat's Load a Sim, that wouldn't have happened. And that's the simplest stupid bass line. That's like 3 notes in a row, and it's just like, okay, I can take that.
Yeah.
I can ask other people to be talented on top of it. My arrangement for that was mostly just coming up with lyrics and the bass line. And then I was like...
But the lyrics are what made it so effective.
The lyrics were literally gibberish.
And yet there was like I don't know, like philosophically something in common with the message of oh god, I can't even remember the name of the song now. The message of The Sims and the message of
I'm blanking on it.
Oh, what is the Talking Heads song? Anyway,
As the days go by. No, it's not the same as it ever was. Not as the days go by.
Once in a Lifetime. There we go.
Once in a Lifetime.
I have to work my way through the words to get there. But it's like thematically it fits so well that like it was but that's like bouncing off ideas of other people is another reason why it's so great to have the community and all the people and all the great things that they're coming up with and the ideas, because one person's idea is the spark of something else, whether it's trying to like emulate somebody else's style so that maybe you'll confuse somebody who's trying to make predictions. That's kind of fun. Or just thinking like
style.
How many tracks have as their basis Conjure by Stemmage as the idea for the blueprint for Brevity Month of like, let's do something that shouldn't be possible. Or do something that's supposed to be long and make it short, which was the case for the our 1 Minute Angel and the
Don't Dance Mad,
Dance
Fast.
And the funny thing was, when you contacted me to do Don't Dance Mad Dead Fast, what was my response? Oh hey, I also had this idea a while ago, and I also like half wrote an arrangement already. So
That's
it's just funny that like those sparks come together. It's and then sometimes there's things where it's just like, I want to work with this person, so let's find something that's going to suit both of us. Like that's where the stuff that I've done, where I've collaborated with Tuck, despite our very different styles and both being keyboard players, the stuff we've done together is where we found something where we can both exist within this space of this song and bring something to the table, and that's really neat as well. Or it's like I forget what the genesis of it was, but the Hypnospace Outlaw track. I did Granny Cream for Brevity Month with my friend Paul by turning it into a overly sexual song, commercial, and and then that indicated that, hey, I'm somebody that had played Hypnospace Outlaw and enjoyed the music. And then when Crowdfunded Games Month came along, Keiko Missile hit me up and said, or Kako Missile hit me up and said, hey, do you want to do Hypnospace is cool, but we'll make it DoD is cool. So like signaling what you like in terms of games or music or what you can do is, I'm sure that has led to so many collaborations with people because they hear like, oh damn, yeah, I need some saxophone in my track, or I need some eru, or I need that person's voice in my track. Like it's so cool. It's led to all of these amazing collaborations. It's just the fact that there's so many of those connections in between people in the community. I love it. It's why I keep coming back.
Yeah, and the fact that like it's weird thinking back to the very old days of DoD when it was exclusively on the shiz and as a message board where it was like you post a thing and you wait a while and then you have to refresh the page to see if anyone responded. But like the fact that this is all happening on Discord now, and there's much more of a back and forth and a give and take, and I feel like that has led to a lot of interesting collaboration in DoD. In a way, it's not like it was impossible on that message board format, but in Discord there's just so much more happening. It's so much easier to have like a conversation rather than like a pen pal exchange almost. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And it also has opened the avenue for because when it was purely confined to the shiz, I definitely obviously that community can be insular and daunting. I mean, some of us have managed to chip our way into there over the years.
They're all lovable,
but
like,
it's
when you get to know them.
Oh yeah, it's it could, to a certain extent, it can feel like nobody knows who you are. You have to show who you are or demonstrate that in some way for people to then want you to ask you to do stuff and so on. And it's not that it wasn't possible; it was just a lot harder. But now the fact that there's more conversation, the fact that you've got you can tag the roles, we've got the Anon bot for collabs. I think that's the best use of that completely, is when somebody can say, hey, I'm working on something and I really think it needs live trumpet. Anybody willing to help me out? And you might get collaborators that you'd never had worked with before, or somebody makes an offer to do something. And I've had a few of those myself. Yeah, the track for last month for David Wise, I was like, I know this is mostly going to be vocal and synth stuff, but I really need a guitar for that extra added interest in a few of the parts and to add some oomph to it. And I pinged the channel in collabs, and Retro Reboot got back to me, and turned something around really quickly, and it was just fantastic. And it just opens the door to a lot more of those possibilities, which I think is really, really cool, to continue making those connections between people.
Yeah. I don't know if I have much else. It's getting kind of late on my end. How are you doing?
Yeah, same here. Yeah, I probably need to have dinner at some point.
Any
I'm
last,
so happy
this has been Out of Hibernation. It's getting released tomorrow. We've pinned that in the Twitch chat. I think I put that in announcements in the Dio Discord. If you're here and you don't know what Dwelling of Duels is, that's interesting in its own right. But I'll just ping the Moobot to see, join a Discord server and chat with DoD regulars all month long, so you get a little slice of what we've had tonight, but
yeah,
forever.
I think I am. I think I don't know exactly how this works, but I'm just going to hit the publish album button and see what happens.
Oh boy.
It's published. Yeah, it's so
So-
angrypolarbear.bandcamp.com. I'm on my other computer here, so yeah, perfect. So it should show up now if you follow that link. Yeah, pick it up. It's pay what you want. It's just about getting the music out there. And please do read down to the credits. Lots of people have helped and supported this, in addition to the collaborators that have featured on the album that have worked within DoD. Also, if you click through on each track, it'll tell you what the original track was, who the composer was. I think it's really important that we always credit the people that have given us this playground to play in. Always stoked when I see sometimes some of these tracks make their way back to the original composers, and they see that people love their stuff or love something that they wrote 30 years ago and are doing fun things with it. Like, that's another really neat thing about the community, is maybe things weren't written with this type of stuff in mind initially, but just to have birthed this entire scene is just fantastic.
Excellent. APB, it has always been a pleasure. And you're going to MAG this year, right?
I'll be at MAG, yep.
Okay. When I see you there, I am going to run and jump hug you without warning. So
okay,
just
I'll brace myself.
Be on alert once you cross Maryland state lines. You just know at some point I'm going to get you.
Yeah.
But yeah, this has been a treat. This feels like so much fun, just between you and Corey and Ian having these album parties. Like, I couldn't pick more fun people to hang out with and talk about video game music for a while. Like, what a treat and what a pleasure. This has been an excellent time. You've got some excellent music going on, and yeah, I think any last thoughts before we close out the night?
Just thanks for having me. Thanks for all the work you do to keep DoD going and taking over now as new overlord. It's a great community. I'm so happy to be a part of it. Thanks for those of you who stuck around for the listening party, and enjoy the album.
All right, keep it right here. This has been Out of Hibernation with Angry Polar Bear. Bear, bear, bear.